This week I'm going to make this fabulous little card, and as you'll notice, it's got several different textures on here. That's because I'm using some specialty papers such as the brown crocodile paper and the chocolate color me paper. And this fabulous flower, or Bodacious Bloom I should call it, is from the downloadable cutting file. So I've cut this out with the Silhouette Cameo digital cutter with cardstock. Now the Bodacious Blooms template, which I've shown you a couple weeks ago, you could do the same thing, however, you can't really do it with cardstock, and with the downloadable cuttable file, it cuts it for you, and perfect edges, no creases to sort of uncrease, and you can do it with a heavyweight cardstock such as this, so you can have your folded petals kind of keep their shape a little better. So I'm going to show you how to use the digital file and to make this lovely card. And I'm going to show you a couple things I made it with. First off is the Color Me Chocolate 6-pack. Now this is in our line of Color Me colors, which we have white, silver, gold, black, and now we have a nice rich brown. On the back of the package there's a lot of card ideas and scrapbook page ideas and technique ideas. So you're getting plenty of info on that. Just to show you a little bit, a preview, there's some really pretty chevrons. This is some hexagons, kind of in a beehive pattern, or honeycomb. And then we've got the stripe, which has got some cute little rulers in it, and is kind of a sampling of all of the papers. This one I've cut out of, but it's a really pretty medallion print. And then the labels and borders, of course, and I've already used that one on the card, but yours will be brand new. Next, we have the Crocodile brown specialty paper, and this will come in a full 8.5 by 11 sheet. I've obviously used a piece of this for the card, and it's got a really lovely texture, and no animals were harmed in the making of this paper, so that's great. And we've also got the thin line border Dazzles, and you're going to get a sheet of Dazzles in gold, just like this one, except complete of course, and you're going to get the brown lines as well, so that's a bonus. And last but not least, I can't show you this because it's digital, but you're going to get the digital Bodacious Blooms downloadable file available on Paper Wishes, and that'll allow you to, if you have a digital cutter, to cut all of those blossom shapes that you see on the Bodacious Blooms page, which is shown in the other video. A couple other things I've used that are not in the bundle, mind you, are the Heart to Heart stamps and the pink pastel and lime pastel ink pads, as well as basic supplies such as glue stick, foam tape, scissors, etc. And of course your white card and envelope. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my blank white card, and this is 6.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall. Set that aside for now. Then I've cut the crocodile paper to 7 inches by 5.5, so it's actually a 1/2 inch longer and taller than the card. So I'm gonna place these together, and I'm actually just gonna place a piece of stencil tape on each of the corners. Alright, now I'm gonna take my X-Acto knife and my ruler with a metal edge, and I'm gonna go ahead and make some cuts. Now I wanna make these cuts to be like rays coming out from the top corner. So I'm just going to start kind of at a diagonal here, and I'm going to try and cut through both layers at the same time. Alright, still keeping my paper taped down. I'm going to keep going, doing my angled cuts. Let's see, I'm going to start from this edge. I think it's an easier angle for me. You might have to press down a little more than usual because you're going through 2 layers. And I can go right through the tape, that's fine. So I made 2 cuts, and I'm going to continue making cuts, maybe 3 more cuts. So in total I've made 5 cuts, so I've made 6 different pieces of both layers. So what I'm going to do is glue them onto the card, and just one by one I will glue this one first. Then for the next one I'll line up that crocodile paper right next to it. And the reason why I've made this piece a little bit bigger than the card is in case some of the white starts to show or the angle's just slightly off. At the very end I'm just going to trim the excess paper so it's aligned with the card. Alright, so I have covered the front of my card, and I'm really liking how there's such a bold contrast between the dark crocodile paper and the Color Me paper here. Now the Color Me paper has been colored, I forgot to mention, with lime pastel, color box fluid chalk ink, and a cosmetic wedge, so really easy to just dab it on there. Now this is the other half of the pieces, which you could use either for another card or you could use it for the inside of this card. So that's a plus, you kind of get double duty there. So I haven't trimmed off the edges of my card yet, which I'm going to do now. Just taking a ruler and your blade here and just trimming off the excess. And do that for all 4 sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and use some of these thin line border Dazzles, and these are a pretty shimmery gold, and on the package you'll see instructions on how to use them in different ways. Today I'm going to use them just along each of my rays here, so kind of on the top and then on this side, as well as in between each array of paper. Alright, I'm just laying the last Dazzle strip down. And you just kind of start it, hold it with your finger, and then lay down a few inches at a time just to make sure you're going straight across the whole way. And I'll end up trimming it right about there. And they cut pretty easily. Alright. So as you can see, that adds a little bit of shine. It looks like a really luxurious card. I love the textures and the metallic coming through. So next step is to start adding some flowers up here. And now I have my pretty flower shapes. Here's the largest, medium, and small. Now what I'm going to do for the edges of each flower is ink them with this pink pastel ink. And again, I'm using cosmetic wedge. And I'm just going to dab on the ink and a little bit more on the tips, just for that really nice shaded look. Now to get the ink on the edges, I just bend up the adjoining petal so that I can get all the edges of all my petals. I'm going to sort of bend up the petals and curl them back to give them a little more three-dimensionality. Now to really get enough ink on the edges, I place my flower on a piece of paper. I like to fold back my cosmetic wedge. It gives it a kind of rounded tip here. And just gently sponge a little more ink on the tips. And if it's uneven, that's totally fine. Just keep on dabbing and it should blend in pretty well. So here are my flowers individually. Now look how pretty they look when I stack them together. And I love that the shading of the pink is sort of realistic, and it adds a lot more dimension. Now this little circle I got from that Chocolate Color Me circle paper. I just cut out one circle and inked it with the same lime pastel as is on the card. And that's going to be the center of my center flower. So first I'm going to glue these flowers together, and I'll probably put a little bit of foam tape on the very center so that it doesn't squish down any of the petals. Now for the greeting, I've cut this label shape out of the labels and frames sheet of the Chocolate Color Me. It's got some borders on it as well. And I've taken the same sponge that I've inked the flower with and kind of inked the edges just the right side here, because it's going to go off the card like that with the gold lines running across. And I'm going to use for my greeting one of these heart to heart stamps. This isn't in the bundle, but if you buy this separately, it's got tons and tons of different friendship and love and lots of fun different shapes of words too. I love the different fonts on here. So let's see, what one should I use? That one fits really well. Some of them, it's kind of easy to tell which ones won't work because they're too tall and whatnot. So Hugs and Kisses is cute too. I think I'll use that one. Now since this is a brand new stamp set and I haven't used it yet, I'm going to take my sanding block, and this is on the finest setting, and just kind of lightly brush it across the surface of the stamp. And that kind of removes the film that sometimes tends to stick to it, the very new stamps, because sometimes if you use a brand new stamp right out of the package, it'll get some beading, and you'll want to test that first. If not, that's fine. If yes, then I would suggest using the sanding block, just very lightly. So I'm using my Timber Brown Stays On ink pad. I'm going to ink up my stamp really well here. Let's see if I got everything covered. Looks good. And I'm going to stamp right there. Okay. I'm satisfied with that. So I'm going to set my greeting right there where it's going to be. So that's about 2.5 inches in. So I'm going to set my ruler about to the middle of the greeting. And if I go 2.5 inches in, it's about right there. So really I only have to put gold strips from here to there. So I'm going to kind of measure. I like to use these scallop borders. So I'm going to go ahead and trim 1, 2, 3, 4 of them to the size I like. Okay. So take off the first one here. And make sure my ruler's straight. I'll go up a little bit. And start just before 2.5, just so I have some leeway there. And kind of go along the ruler. I know it's kind of hard to see because the ruler is clear, but you can tell as you lay it down if it's lined up. There we go. Good. So now once I have the first one down, the rest should be a little bit easier. I'm actually choosing to do the second scallop upside down, so I've got sort of a chain link effect. See how that looks? And then I'm going to do the same thing with the next two strips. So I've got my two chains done, and I've also foam taped my greeting here and trimmed it off. And the last thing I'm going to do is glue this beauty onto the corner of the card, and I'm going to call it good. So if you're buying the hot off the press cards and envelopes together, you will be happy to note that even though this flower goes off the edge of the card, it still fits snugly in the standard envelope. So there you have it. I'm not doing an inside of the card this week just because I've got all those extra tutorials. I don't want this to go on too long, but you can definitely grab some ideas from the front of the card, which I usually do. For example, these strips could go on the inside. You could add some more gold thin lines, and of course the Color Me. So I hope you enjoyed this card making tutorial, and stay tuned for the bundle. So in the bundle, once again, you're getting the Color Me Chocolate 6-pack with all these fabulous patterns, coloring them in any way you wish. You're getting a full sheet of the brown Crocodile textured specialty paper, a sheet of gold thin lines Dazzles, and they come with 63 lines, and you're also getting a sheet of brown thin lines Dazzles, which I don't have with me, as well as the digital downloadable Bodacious Blooms cutting file. Now I do want to show you a sampling of what you can cut with the file. So I've kind of cut a set of each of the flowers for you. This one I believe is called the Lindy. So look how perfectly it was cut with my Silhouette Cameo. And it doesn't matter if you have a Cameo or another style of cutter. If one of the file formats matches your cutter, you can definitely use it in the same way. And it comes in, I think, 5 or 6 different file formats when you download it. So more about that online. So this comes with 4 different layers, and you can, of course, cut different colors per layer. I just did it the easiest way for now. This one, I think, is called the Deborah, and it's got a fun daisy shape. Again, 4 layers. This one does come with holes in the center, but you can always customize it on the software. Then we have the Molly, and this is kind of the generic rounded daisy shape, and I like this really bright cheerful yellow, so I did it in that color. Now for the leaves, this is the default size, which is really large, but you can always size them down and multiply them however many times you want. For example, I've done a few a little bit smaller, so you can match them up with your flowers. You can also layer your flowers with different centers. There's just endless possibilities. I could go on and on. Ooh, I forgot this one. This is actually the Bodacious Blossom, and it's the fanciest. So it's got some really pretty edges, and you can kind of curl up the insides, you can curl up the outsides, you can layer them with other styles of flowers. It's really a lot of fun to play around with, as you can see. But the digital cutting file has immense value because you can use it over and over again and never get the same result. And you can use it with any type of cardstock or paper that you have in your collection. So I think that's really exciting. Now, of course, I forgot to show you the last flower, and this is called the Matilda. So it's got 6 petals, and it's got this lovely scallop on the edges of the petals. So you can either stack them lined up or alternating petals. It's really fun to kind of play around with this. Alright, now I'm really done. Hope you enjoyed this week, and join me again next week for another fun project. Thanks for watching.